Welcome to this edition of At the Mic. I'm your host, Keith Malinak. A man who needs little introduction, Dave Landau. He's my guest, and he's coming up next. First, let's talk about macadamia nuts. They're quite underrated, in my opinion. And in coffee, oh, what an awesome combination from American Pride Roasters Coffee. This was such a treat to be a part of this process of creating a new blend, an At the Mic Show blend, after Dave Matthews from aprcoffee.com approached me, asked me some of my favorite flavors as he was working on this concoction, and it turned out brilliantly with the macadamia nuts, and it comes out in a beautiful roast from aprcoffee.com. Brewed right there in the heart of the great state of Iowa. So if you're looking for a unique blend, well, they've got plenty. And the latest one is, of course, the At the Mic Show blend. That's aprcoffee.com. Use promo code ATM at checkout, and you're going to get 10% off. I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all think of the At the Mic Show blend. But first, you got to try it. So get over to aprcoffee.com today.
You're listening to At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production.
Dave Landau is my guest this week on At the Mic, a comedian, and so much more to this guy. And it was such a pleasure getting to know him in the course of our conversation today. You probably know him from his stand-up, from his role on Louder with Crowder, that's Steven Crowder's show. It was such a pleasure to meet him, and I can't wait to share this conversation with you right now here on At the Mic. Joined in studio here at the Blaze today, Dave Landau. Man, I appreciate you making time. People have been asking me to have you in here, by the way.
I appreciate that. I don't know who, but thank you.
Several people on Twitter constantly said, you got to get Dave on, you got to get Dave on. And I thought, wait a minute. The Crowder studio is right here. This is a local deal. So yeah. I'm glad this worked out. Thanks for coming in.
Dude, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's go to the beginning. You were born in Detroit, Michigan.
Yes.
Because you grew up in Grosse Pointe, Michigan.
Yeah, I grew up in Grosse Pointe, which is like an upscale suburb.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you. It's
yeah,
suburb. Okay.
But it's kind of not like I was born on 7 Mile in 94, and I grew up on 8 Mile in 94 in the lowest rent part of an upscale suburb on the border of Detroit. Dude. So it's like I grew up kind of in the middle of. There was like poverty right down the street, as poor as you could get,
right? And
then the richest of the rich to the right. So I grew up in the dead center of the two different kinds, because there's not much middle there. It's pretty much you're rich or you're really poor, and we were as like middle class as you could possibly be, I would say.
Yeah.
So we were normal 3-bedroom house, but I had friends that auto execs kids and all that kind of stuff, like Red Wings money, stuff like that, like just insane money. And then other people's parents sold drugs, and they really only went to school to sell weed to white kids and stuff. So that was just sort of what it was.
It almost sounds like you're describing the school I went to growing up. So I can totally relate to what you're talking about. That's great. So, okay, grew up, you're a Michigan guy.
Yes.
Now, you have a twin brother. It's not conjoined, obviously.
No.
Not identical.
We were separated.
You were separated.
Yes.
So does this just mean that you were born at the same delivery, basically, same time?
Same time, yeah. Okay. We don't even look alike, and we graduated different years, so people didn't even realize we were brothers.
Okay.
Which had to do with my drug use and his.
Oh, no. We're going to get into this.
Yeah. Okay. So, that was interesting. There's nothing better than graduating high school a year after your twin brother, because you have to go to his graduation party that's supposed to be for the both of you.
Oh, no.
So everybody's congratulating him, like, great job, Mike, and just looking at me like, hey, you junkie.
Wait, were the people in the next year's graduating class cooler than his? Or did you?
They were pretty awesome.
Okay,
I mean, I was friends with both of them, so it all worked.
Who was born first?
My brother, by 2 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, I thought you had something there. But...
No, I got nothing on him.
Okay.
He's a better athlete, and he graduated first.
I got you. I love how your earliest memory is watching the movie Ghostbusters with your dad. I can totally relate.
Yes.
Totally relate to that time. In fact, I was thinking about this when I saw your answer in the email. I was thinking, I wonder if that was like the first T-shirt that I owned that had like a logo on it or a movie reference or something
Yeah.
like that. It wasn't sports, I should say. Because I remember I had a dark blue Ghostbuster shirt. Everybody had them. I don't know if you remember that.
I do, absolutely. I remember as weird as it sounds. Oh man, what is the guy's name? He killed a woman, and it was at a restaurant.
Oh, no.
He's in jail. He was once a little rascal.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah, for some reason, the first logo shirt I ever got, my mom randomly bought and I don't even know why they made it in a kid shirt, but it was for Beretta.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So I was walking around for some reason in this shirt that, an eventual murderer. So I have pictures of me like in front of the fridge. My brother's in like a Ninja Turtle shirt, and for some reason I'm in a Beretta shirt.
Oh, wow.
That was my first one. My second one was Ghostbusters. And my mom was like kind of crazy, so she made us dress like really nice all the time. So finally she gave up, and it was funny because I was looking at this Cornholio statue right there. And my first thing she ever got me when she started just not caring anymore was Beavis and Butthead
All right.
shirt. Yeah, when
Very
I was
cool.
like 10
That's good
or
stuff.
11, like right when it came out.
Wow, okay. Well,
Yeah, so it was like...
Mike Judge is a genius.
Dude, he's amazing.
I mean, if you're listening, which I know you're probably not, sir, but we do have a common friend on social media. Please respond to those requests.
Dude, he's so good. He's just so good. King of the Hill's amazing. Everything he's done is amazing.
Idiocracy,
which is a documentary.
right? I mean, it has become. It used to be a look to the future. Then it was, we're living that, and now it's like we're worse off than they were.
We're actually worse
in some
off.
ways.
In many ways, we're
Right?
worse off.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion.
By the way, I was looking up your Little Rascals murderer thing.
Yes,
and-
Robert Blake. I just realized.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Well, I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because Google has come back with this article that is headlined The Curse of the Little Rascals.
Oh, they're all dead.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's just one story after another. I'm looking at least a dozen names and little stories about tragic endings.
Yeah, those kids were like replaceable, where they just called them in and were like, because when you think about it, those movies were like in the invention of film. Like a lot of those shows, so they just call that's real fire.
Yeah.
Those are kids in real fire and like hoses and all that stuff.
No.
Like what you see is not a special effect. It's abused children, and that was the Little Rascals.
Yeah,
Hollywood has always been evil.
right, obviously.
There's nothing that's new.
Listen to this. I'm scrolling through all of these names and all of these little nuggets, these little stories, and it gets down to the end. Tragedy even struck Pete the pup, with the
one eye.
Yeah.
The black circle over his
right.
eye.
The first dog to play Pete was poisoned by an unknown assailant in 1930.
There you go. Right.
Wow, I'm so glad I looked that up. But okay.
Yeah, if you ever want to be sad, just watch Little Rascals, then read what happened to him. Right. And buckwheat was the most interchangeable, I'm sure. Like at that time, it's so sad what happened to those kids.
Wow.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's hilarious.
No, I'm
just because they were so awful.
Wow, I had no idea with these stories.
Yeah, the Little Rascals is just so sad because the producers didn't care.
Listen to this. I'm going to dwell on this for a moment, if I may.
You have every right.
Just listen to this. This is what happened to him. Let's see here. Hit and run, driver killed him. Committed suicide. Suicide. Stabbed to death. Fell asleep while smoking in bed. Let's see here.
Is this just buckwheat or is this various ones?
No, this is no. These are all individual characters.
Wasn't Spanky hit by a car?
Let's see here. Where's Spanky on here? I know one of the kids got like a new bike or something like that, and he died, early on while they were shooting and stuff. Where is Spanky? I'm gonna have to do a little Control F here. Hang on.
No, we can go back, but I mean, Alfalfa was who died smoking.
Who died?
Was it the girl?
It was. I don't know. This one is like this guy is under Other Rascals' fate.
Yes.
Robert Young fell asleep while smoking. It doesn't say what his character was. Yeah. But I'm looking for. I don't have Spanky's death on here. Huh. That's interesting.
Spanky probably had a hard life. He had a hard childhood because he was the fat kid on that show in 1930, and that was before really preservatives. So he was really you really had to work to be fat. So like he had a rough childhood right there.
Golly, oh my gosh.
It's just sad.
I'm seeing that now, and I am not closing this tab until I fully absorb this article.
It's just horrible what they did. Like they're just the worst in the beginning of Hollywood.
No kidding. Okay. So you went to Lansing Community College.
Yeah, for a year. Yeah.
For a year. Had you already determined what you wanted to do, what you wanted to major in at that point?
I knew I wanted to be I always knew I wanted to make film, but I was going to Second City at the same time, the Detroit chapter.
Okay.
So when I went there, I just took all the film classes. So I took all the film classes and screenwriting classes, and then I left. And I took like one acting class because I just wanted the information.
Oh wow.
So I learned how
You had a plan.
Yeah. So I learned how to edit real film, which didn't do me any good 3 years later. And then I learned how to edit digital on the first Adobe ever that looked like the Ghostbusters trap. Like it was like all this it was like impossible. Like you can do it on your phone
with the big red buttons and the green little squares.
Yeah, and you'd like put it in and it was crazy.
Uh-huh.
And so that was relevant for a year. And but I learned all about that. I took some acting classes like the method acting and all that other stuff. And after a year, I just left because really all I did was edit film and then party the entire time.
Uh-huh.
And then after that, I just stayed at Second City.
I see. Okay. By the way, this is I'm just showing Dave this is what I edit the show on now.
Yeah.
Which is like the more recent version of Adobe Audition. It has changed so many times.
It's far superior. Like anything on your phone is better than anything that was around 19 years ago.
Good point. And I've mentioned this on this program before. And I thought I would bring it up here because you just talked about stuff you learn in college that's outdated the second you get the diploma handed to you. And for me, it was I went to the University of Nebraska from 1994 to 1998, and believe it or not, they actually taught us to take a razor blade and splice.
That's what we did.
tape.
Yeah.
And I've never had to use that skill.
I've never done it outside of the classroom I did it in.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm happy I did it, but I don't even know if I could do it now.
Oh, not a chance for me. Yeah. Okay, so how long were you there then?
I was at the Second City for a couple years.
Okay.
Just kind of taking classes, doing a little bit of like sort of understudy stuff, and just
Is that a place where you can just go? Is it like a school? What I'm not.
It
familiar
was the one in Detroit, and there's still a training center in Chicago.
Okay.
There might be in Canada. I don't know, but at the time it was. Yeah, you learned about acting, improv, writing for stage, sketch.
Okay.
All that stuff.
All right.
And it's everybody who was on SNL, which was at one point my dream. Kind of went through there. So I started writing sketches. I ended up doing 2 plays that I was really proud of. And I like stand-up. I like the writing aspect. And eventually once I started going into there, I just kind of let that go and went full on stand-up.
Okay, so is that what because I know that from a young age, you knew what you wanted to do for a living.
To a degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it stand-up then? What did you have, I guess, as a kid, as your ultimate goal? Which, of course, can change over time.
Yeah, it's tough to say. Like, I grew up loving SNL, but then I loved John Candy, and I loved Steve Martin, and I love these other, I love comedy movies.
So when you said SNL, that you're talking about, that was your dream from
when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
My dad would wake me up to watch SNL with him. This is like the Farley years, like the early Farley years. Dennis Miller was still on Update.
Man. That's the era.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That was I'm looking back on the eras of SNL now.
Yes.
I am so glad that when I was starting to understand what was funny, that was that era that you're speaking of.
Yeah, there's something too about it that is sort of low rent that needs to exist. Because I don't want to say low rent, but right now it's too digitized. You see too much. It's just kind of they're going through the motions. It doesn't look right on the way that it's filmed now to me. But the way that it looked before just looked more gritty. And that's what I liked about SNL was it should have been a gritty 11:30 show. Yeah. It came on late at night for people that weren't, alive then or watching it then. That was rebellious. There was a renegade feeling to going up that late at night.
Yeah.
Even then.
Yeah, and it looked like a set.
Yeah, it looked like a set.
I've never thought about this.
Yeah, like an interchangeable set.
Right.
And that's kind of what Second City felt like was, I'm reading Bob Odenkirk's book, and he talks about going to Second City after being at SNL and how relieved he was even to see, like, old wigs. He's like, I just like that. Like, I like the fact that you had, like, the minimalism of it is so relieving to a degree because you have to work with so little that it forces you to write the comedy.
If you, and maybe you're already familiar with this, I was only recently introduced to this podcast with David Spade and Dana Carvey.
I haven't listened.
Okay, well,
I wouldn't a heartbeat, though.
If you want to relive those times, I mean, that's the guests they have on. John Lovitz.
Yeah.
Obviously, Dana Carvey and David Spade are there, but they have on there as their guests were their co-stars during that era.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and it's just. I don't know. It's just I relive some memories going through listening to that podcast, but I'm just trying to think of the name of it here. And of course,
yeah, there was so much there. Like I got to do Dennis Miller's podcast, which was amazing because I loved him, and then Norm Macdonald was my hero, and I loved watching Norm. Like I was a bit older when he started doing it, but I mean like 12, 13, and just watching him. Just like to me, I was crying laughing so hard at home that years later, when I go back and rewatch it, I don't realize how bad he's bombing just to piss off the audience, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Yeah,
like just him going. Lisa Marie and Michael Jackson have gotten divorced. Lisa Marie wishes that he was more of a homebody, and Michael Jackson wishes that she was a 7-year-old boy. And now the whole room's booing, and he goes, "You do know he's a homosexual pedophile, right?" Like he just doubles down on it. And it was so great because they just pushed this.
Yeah.
And the way that they did it was so like what I liked about Sandler too, and a lot of people have given him crap, but he brought silly back, like the idea of just being goofy.
Yeah.
And people don't realize how wonderful that is in such this like simplistic way, and that's why he's so successful. There's just so much that show provided at that time. Yeah, that's what I wanted to be, and that's why I went to Second City, but then stand-up just kind of was something I fell in love with.
Yeah, okay. Hold that thought, because real quick, before I forget,
Yes.
Fly on the Wall is the name of the podcast.
Okay.
But, I mean, if you look up Dana Carvey, David Spade, you'll find it.
No, I want to listen to that.
Yeah, and you're right. That era, classic, I make my kids sit down, go on YouTube. We're watching Chris Farley bits. I mean, just the other night we watched, because what I'm doing is I'm listening to that podcast. They're referencing these old skits.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I got to watch that with the kids. Oh, Chippendales, Chris Farley, Patrick Swayze. Got to watch that, So yes, you will love that podcast. But now I want to talk to you about your stand-up career. And you talk about comedy and some of these great moments.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not on stage with a microphone trying to make people laugh. It seems like now in this cancel culture, everybody is waiting to be offended. It's got to be tough to be a comedian today, yeah?
It is and it isn't. You kind of just have to do it. It's definitely not as welcoming in the sense of a social media aspect. Like, you tweet something out, somebody's going to be pissed off, but you just ignore it. I mean, that's all it comes down to. If you give anybody any kind of leverage, that's where you go wrong. Like, arguing on Twitter or trying to go at somebody in that way, and people are very weak who want to gang up on it, so it's like, just move, You will get people, though, that are easily offended. You will get people that want to cancel you, and it's one of those things that cancel culture is real because the idea is they want to take away your livelihood for something you said, or they want to take away anything that they can. And I've had people call clubs, I've had people call places, I've had people try to do that, and it's like, fortunately, I've been in this for so long, they know me and they know my character.
That's what I was going to say. Your audience, for the most part, until you said that about someone calling the club, I would assume they're going there because they want to see you. Specifically, they didn't just stumble on a post on social media.
No, and a lot of them have known me for years from like recovery and everything, and I talk like there's no race or sex or anything that my audience is like my material is geared towards. So I have it of all walks of life, and that's what I like. But now you do have people that I think are extremely close-minded, and if they go, well, he's on Crowder, so whatever, it can't be this, it can't be that. It can only be extreme right wing, and it's like, no, it's not. It's me being me, and it's my opinions, and I'm allowed to have them.
Yeah.
And, and he's not that either, but that's what they want to label it as.
Right.
So everything's a label. So it's definitely a little harder, but I don't know, there's an element of danger to comedy if it's done right anyway. Comedy should feel like you're doing something wrong sometimes,
That's well said.
Yeah, and I don't mind that. Like, I think that's a good thing. I think the fact that when you put something out and it gives you a little bit of that, like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go over, that feels good. Because that's, like, think about when you were young with your kid and you're young and you're laughing at, like, truly tasteless jokes, or whatever it was that made you feel like that first time you were laughing and you swore you were going to go to hell for laughing at what you were going to laugh at when you were like 10, right?
Yeah.
That is true comedy. That honest reaction from the depth of your soul because something is so evil it's funny, that's comedy. Like, that's what I love. Like, real comedy done right is that. And I don't think that any comedy is real unless it really does punch you. I don't know why. That's just how I've always been. Like, I really feel like it should be something like that.
How often do you get to go out on the road now that we are on the other side of COVID? And I failed to say this at the beginning. I'm glad you mentioned Steven Crowder, which is where people can catch you doing your thing over there. How often do you get to go out on the road and do shows now?
I never stopped. That pissed people off, but I was like, I'll be in Arkansas and I'm taking a plane. And I got upgraded to first class because it's me and 3 other people on it.
That is awesome. I love you for that alone.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
And what's strange is I'm a germaphobe. My mom was a bipolar nurse. Like, I grew up, I'm terrified of germs. But there was nothing logical about anything that was happening. I'm going, you want me to put a mask on and go use a public bathroom and then wear it all day? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
So I would have like 4 masks at the airport for when I would use a public bathroom, then take that one off and put a new one on because I'm germophobic. And then I would go on the plane and it's like, there's nobody on the plane. This is the best. It can't be cleaner than nobody on this plane. So I would go back and forth to LaGuardia every week, like to do my other show because I was on the Anthony Cumia show at the time. So I would do that every week, that radio show. And then I would either go back to Detroit, where I was living at the time with my family, or I would fly to a gig if they were still open.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you find enough places that were open?
I was working probably at least twice a month. And then there was probably a chunk in 2020 where there was a month and a half that went by, and it was the longest I'd ever taken off of stand-up, where you just could not work anywhere.
Yeah. How were the crowds during this time?
They were fine. They were small, but 40 people who wanted to get out of their house and laugh were great because they appreciated what they couldn't have. Right. I think there was a point where crowds were getting almost too complacent, a little too comfortable, and not really giving the performers the benefit of the doubt. And paying God knows how much money for like any kind of tickets. It could be Broadway, it could be whatever. Like, I paid $700 to see Bruce Springsteen on Broadway, and it was just because I wanted the experience of like. Yeah. All right, I'd like to see him live, and it's a 500-seat theater, and they're going for $3,000. So if I can get 2 tickets for $700, waiting outside at the last minute, I'll do it.
Yeah,
and I did.
Yeah,
but there was that element of, like, they got too greedy too, the ticket companies, and I've noticed that's gone down. There's benefits to all of it, I think. You know,
and this sounds morbid, but. Well, it may have more to do with the fact that I was flying from Houston, Texas to Omaha, Nebraska in the dead of winter. It was January 2002, and I think I just, for the fun of it, I put on Priceline. I'll give them $19.
Yeah.
I think it was under $40 round trip. But anyhow, so there are benefits when
it's like September 12th, 01. You're like, $4?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's what, you got to work this in somewhere. Okay, you got to play the system.
It's called lemonade. You make lemonade.
Thank you. You've been a luggage salesman.
I have been.
So I have to ask you, I've never interacted with someone that was trying to sell me luggage. I just went to a store, bought it off the shelf. Where were you working?
Downtown Detroit.
Okay.
And right now, it's been sort of gentrified. So the area is nice. At the time, it was not.
Right.
So I worked in a very high-end luggage store that exclusively sold luggage, wallets, briefcases, mainly to corrupt pastors in the middle of Detroit, and homeless people that ran in and would just steal them.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, like we had to close at 5:30 for the insurance just because you'd get killed.
Yeah.
So usually I was just hungover, like it was really bad. But yeah, I would sell all these different suitcases, luggage, and I would go out back and smoke cigarettes, and basically I would do it until I would see and I'm not kidding, like a pack of pit bulls like just walking down the street, and I'd be like, oh, I got to go back in. But all these rich people would come from the suburbs to get like Toomey and Hartman and all these high-end luggage brands, and come to us because we guaranteed stuff. So they would come into the store because it's been around since the whatever the year this dad opened it, probably like the 50s or 40s or whatever. So they always supported it. But yeah, I was a luggage salesman, and I made like no money. It was incredible. It was like $7 an hour.
So wait, someone comes in there and says, all right, what's the difference between this suitcase and that? I mean,
yeah, I have to know.
Wow, okay.
And I can still tell you.
Oh, so what? Okay, so I have notorious bad luck with luggage.
Yeah.
Like the corner, like the wheels will break off on the second trip. The corners will rub off in a year.
Yeah.
What brand do I need that I don't want to spend a lot of money, though, Dave?
See, that's the tough part. You want to go to Marshall's. And you want to look for Hartman. You're never going to find Toomey because Toomey's now way overpriced and made in China. But you want to look for Hartman, and you want more like the woolly stuff that's like easily collapsible because they can toss it around and it's not going to get damaged. Okay. That's probably what you're going to want to go with. That's what I have. The zippers will still rip off of it because everything is crap now. Mm-hmm. That's the true problem, is everything is made terribly now. So, but if you're looking for something, because I have the same deal with luggage. I have like 4 different bags. Mm-hmm. But yeah, honestly, like the softer...
Because you travel a ton, so you...
Nonstop.
I mean, so that actually is a great background for you to have.
Yeah, I totally get luggage, and I will help people out with when they need it.
I love that.
And the 4-wheel rolling motion is the best.
Yeah?
Yeah, and if you want to get it on a plane, go under 21 inches and make sure you pack it tight, and they'll never stop you.
I love it. And I fly, I say exclusively, but... Sometimes I find myself having to take a different airline, but I try to fly Southwest all the time.
Yeah.
I love being able to take stuff. What? My kids don't understand the era where, no, you don't understand. Everyone used to let you take 2 suitcases and 2 bags.
Yeah. The one day they were just like, well, you have to pay to take stuff with you. It's like, I'm going on a trip, right? Like, was I supposed to just go without anything? It's like, yeah, well, we didn't know. It's got to be $35 a bag to bring anything with you.
We didn't know. We thought you were going to just buy clothes when you were there and then donate them to a homeless dude on the way to the airport.
Yeah, we're sorry. We just have to charge you $35 a bag.
That's so
it's the worst.
I hate it.
And then it's more for the second bag now. That's why you have to get a card with any of the airlines. It's like, well, now I got to get a credit card so I don't have to pay for luggage. And that's it's the worst. I hate them.
Or just fly Southwest.
Yeah, Southwest is good about it. I do Delta just because they go to so many places. Yeah. But I do also do Southwest. But yeah, it's I hate everyone.
I guess
every company just screws you in every way possible.
They find a way. All of them, some variation of how to screw you over. They all have.
Well, and people have gotten so fat. Like I was sitting on a plane. And I'm fat. I get it. I'm one of the problem.
Come on.
It's.
I'm checking out your gut. Shut up.
But like you're sitting on a plane, and I remember a lady came. Like the flight attendant walks up and goes, "Ma'am, you have to get off the plane." This is on Southwest. She goes, "There's sort of a weight limit, and you were one of the last people on." And it's like you could have just said anything, but you chose to say to this woman, "There's a weight," and she wasn't even that big, at all. And I felt so bad for her because I'm like. She's like, well, this is embarrassing. I'm like, well, it's just because you were one of the last people on, and she was like a layover that wasn't supposed to get on that plane, like or whatever you call it, a standby.
Oh,
but I felt so bad. I wanted to be like, I'll just stay. I mean, I didn't obviously because I don't want to. But I thought about it for a second.
Hey, look, I thought about being really nice.
Yeah, but then I was like, well, I'm not the standby. But yeah, sorry about the complex you're gonna have for the next 6 years.
Right.
Because you could have just said, we made a mistake. We can't have you on this plane. And she's like, we have a weight limit. And I was like, oh, no.
What did this lady look like? The lady breaking her the news.
She was about the same size.
Okay.
It was just such an awful thing to say.
Awful. All right. Well, I mentioned that my kids can't understand that, you used to could just take luggage on a flight, a novel concept. I know. Another thing that kids can't fully grasp is another job that you did, and that was a Photoshop
Yes.
developer, right? Or clerk, right? Did you develop the actual photos there? Or?
No.
Okay.
I worked the counter and stole money for drugs when people walked away.
Okay, I got you. So, that's gone. I mean that.
Yeah, it was me and 2 other stoners who worked at Photo. It was called Speedy Photo.
Okay.
In Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And I remember when digital started to come out, and we're like, "Do you think that it's going to be a problem?" And they're like, "No, are you kidding? People always want prints of film." And I'm like, I think they're starting to not. And this was like 2000.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, it was getting to the point where I was like, "There's no way this is going to make it," and it didn't.
No, I mean it's there. I had to go to a camera store, in fact, recently. And I had to look far and wide. I ended up having to drive down into Dallas to find.
Yeah, it's like the Asian dude from Gremlins who's just like, what? Who are you?
Yeah, right. It's basically. So I mean, it's just amazing how things change in relatively short amounts of time too.
Oh yeah, you can't find any of that stuff, and if you go to one of those places, it's all antique.
Yeah, they had old cameras and stuff, and yeah. So I'm just trying to think of this place. I mean, it was like walking into a time machine, basically.
Yeah,
my childhood.
Well, if you want a good job done, you have to find those places, because if you just go to your regular like digital printout place, it all looks terrible when you print it out.
Yep. Okay, so anything memorable happened to you when you were a stock boy? Anything that stands out? You're like, oh, I got to tell you about this.
Oh, when I was a stock boy?
Yeah.
It was for a pharmacy. And this was during the heyday of...
Oh, no. I'm seeing where this is going.
I'm in recovery. I should tell them that. Yeah, my friends and I we had to take out the trash in the pharmacy.
Okay.
And this was long before it was regulated.
Okay.
This is when you were signing with an Oxycontin pen when you went to the doctor. This is when girls came in and were pushing the drugs. Yeah. You know what I mean? This is very different.
Samples to try if you'd like.
Just enjoy. It's just some opioids. Have fun. Do what you do. So we would go back and we would take like Vicodin, Percocet, morphine patches, Oxy, all that, but just enough to where the weight wouldn't really be off. And like we just fill like a cellophane with it, go sell some for like $5 each, and then keep some for ourselves. So yeah, we had quite a little racket going. But one day I got fired because there were these delicious. It was a graham cracker shaped like a peanut, and it was filled with peanut butter, and it was made by Planters.
Oh wait a minute.
They were amazing.
Oh yeah,
PB Crisp is what they were called. Yes.
I was addicted to those.
Yeah, they were amazing.
I don't even know how I broke that habit.
The fact that they discontinued them is just
that
wrong.
Must be what happened.
That's why. Because one day I went in and I'm like, they're gone? Well, I would take a snack break and just eat the PB Crisps without really asking. One day I got called in the office and I'm like, oh, well, I guess we're going down for robbing the pharmacy all these times. Not to mention, like, anytime it was 2-for-1 cigarettes, we would just take the extra pack and then just sell you the 1 pack. Like if we were working the cash register,
Oh, dude.
Like we had a lot of schemes going. And I'm not saying I was a good person.
Yeah. No.
But I was also a junkie kid and had some issues. And so, yeah, I would get free cigarettes and some free pills. And he calls me into his office.
Oh, no.
And I got fired for stealing so many PB Crisps. That's what he noticed.
Awesome.
Like, it wasn't anything else. It was like, you have to pay for these. And I was like, oh, well, they were downstairs in a box, though. And he's like, yeah, those are for you to stock, not for you to just sit there and eat every time you take a break. And I was like, oh.
So I have a theory. Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So here's my theory on PB Crisp while they were discontinued. They're like, man, we're just not selling any.
Yeah, it's
especially in Michigan.
Yeah, I don't get it. They're
specifically Grosse Pointe. What is happening? We send them there and they just rot on the shelf because we've never had a barcode scanned.
I used to, and that was a stock boy too at a deli.
Okay.
And that's where I would like take a 6-pack and crack it open.
Oh no.
And I would drink the beer, then I would go and fill it up with water and then close the cap as tight as I could and then put it back in the 6-pack and leave it.
Okay, hold on. Tell me someone didn't come back and be like, this is water.
Yeah, they have. They did. Oh yeah.
Did that get you kicked out of there? Or?
I was like, I have no idea, because there were other stock boys. I was like, my word, I don't know who did this.
Terrible, y'all.
It's a shame.
Okay, so life as a janitor, that couldn't have been.
It's the best job ever.
Really?
It was at the War Memorial in Grosse Pointe, and it was this place on the water where you set up weddings. So it was me and two of my best friends from high school. And what we did was we would set up weddings and break them down. So we had all this time in between, which was us sitting in a carriage house smoking weed. And then we found the theater in the basement. So we would pull down the theater screen and watch full movies on the theater while just getting high. And then we figured out where all the liquor was hidden for the weddings.
Uh-huh.
So if you opened up one of the screens on the top floor and then kind of shimmied alongside of the building, you could push the screen out in the next room and then just start handing bottles of liquor back. So, like, we would just be and the only time we'd ever be called is if they needed a table or something. So they would be like over the walkie-talkie, like, hey, we need this. And whoever was the least messed up would just like, throw like a Tic Tac in and be like, all right, we'll be right there. And then just come up and have like, a 4-top table.
That is awesome.
And I mean, we got free food. Nobody ever complained. I mean, it's not like we screwed anything up. We just set stuff up and broke it down and had an entire wedding length of time in between to just hang out.
So who had paid for the alcohol though?
Oh, I think they did, but it was all a nonprofit company. Like everybody there ended up getting fired and stuff because, like, they ended up owning like some mansions, like three of them that they were just living in, and it ended up being kind of a scheme. Like now, it's totally legit, but at the time, it was already like a little shady. So like they were already shady, so we were just shady on top of the shade they were throwing.
Wow. Okay. So then it makes it. It's fine then. It's fine. It's totally fine.
The occasional outdoor concert where you'd meet like a local, musician who would be like the biggest dick, which I always loved.
Don't you hate that?
It's like, dude, you play pan flute on AM radio, and you're sitting here complaining about why it's like, I need 3 lemons in my water. It's like, yeah, I'll be right back with that.
There'll be something else in your water.
Oh, it's every time. Enjoy.
So let me ask you about, because the question on the email is, what are some other jobs you've held? And you listed the ones we've gone through. And here's an interesting one that stood out. I was a drug dealer.
Yes.
Now, your audience knows this about you.
Yes.
This isn't a story, isn't going to be new news for them.
Mm-hmm.
I would just be nervous, not so much that I was illegally selling drugs. It would be that I don't, as the middleman, I'm assuming I'm selling you something that's not going to be bad and cause problems later?
At the time, at least in the circles that I ran, when you were selling cocaine, you were usually selling it because you were buying it, and then you were selling enough to where you were doing it for free.
Okay.
So that wasn't really it. Or when I was buying, like, let's say we had bought a pound of weed, I'm selling out the ounces or gramming it up so then I can have several ounces for free, or like an extra $300 so I didn't have to work, because that was like even when I was in college.
So the quality of the product that
it wasn't anything bad, and all my friends kind of did it, so it wasn't like any huge amount of weight that could get anybody in serious trouble. But I was already arrested so many times that it's kind of shocking that I wasn't in prison, because I was arrested 13 times over the course of like 12 times over the course of like 5 years. And then years later, I was arrested once. And
so how much time have you served behind bars?
I haven't served much behind like actual prison bars or anything. Just little stints in jail, and obviously rehabs, mental institutions. And then, detoxes, stuff like that. Because everything that I've ever done has been drug and alcohol related.
So ultimately, what motivated you to get clean?
Getting a DUI at 27 when I was finally an adult, and them pulling out my criminal record, because they pulled out. You're supposed to be erased because I was under 21.
Okay.
Or under 18 for most of them, but for some reason this little girl died by a drunk driver. was like Abby's Law or something, so they could look at my priors.
Oh, my.
So they threw the book at me, which I get. And they threw, I mean, it cost me $20,000. Like, what happened that night, to give you an idea, I ended up in jail for a DUI. This was when I was doing comedy. Things in my life had gotten better. I was doing well. I was controlling my drinking. I was recently married. I thought I was better, I should say. Mm-hmm. Next thing I know, I'm in a jail, and there's a guy who had beaten his wife, and he's like this weird-looking guy, and he's crying, and like, and I'm just still drunk, so I'm like, shut up.
Uh-oh.
And this guy could kill me.
Right.
And he's like, but do you think she still loves me? I'm like, no, you beat her. Why would she like you? Shut up. Go to bed. He's like, but Dave, will you wake up and talk to me? I'm like, no. Go to bed. Go punch yourself like you do your wife. And then he's like, please wake up. And I'm like, I'm going to kill you. I'm seriously going to get up and murder you if you do not shut up. So then the police come over.
Oh, no.
And this lady opens up the door and is like, you need to come with us. You threatened to kill him. And I was like, awesome. So I come out, and as we're walking, she goes, we have to put you in solitary because you're threatening to kill people. And I go, okay. And she goes, we're not really mad, though.
Did you say maybe I can sleep in there?
Yeah. I wasn't too mad about it, and she wasn't pissed either because she got why I was doing it. But they took my belt and my shoelaces. I had been there before. And now I'm in this like glass box, just sleeping by myself. No magazines, no anything, no pillow. It's suicide watch.
Oh, man.
And then I get out, and I'm on a digital thing, and they take a screenshot of me, and I look like Pablo Escobar. Like, I looked more like El Chapo, actually.
Uh-huh.
And I just looked bloated, and my eyes were dead, and I was very red-faced, and, like, I gained all this weight, and I realized, like, how bad I looked. And then I'm saying, like, not guilty, and it ended up costing me over $20,000. I had a breathalyzer put in my car for over a year. I had to wear an ankle monitor on my ankle while having a breathalyzer in my car that tested my blood alcohol level. So I would have to go around the country and plug it into walls while I was doing stand-up. And then I was in clubs doing comedy, trying to avoid any alcohol touching me, because if it did, it would set off my monitor. And the day, it's like 3 days before I was supposed to get the breathalyzer out of my car and I was sober, I used mouthwash because I had finally got the tether off.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, so I go downstairs at this comedy condo, and this other dude, Tommy Johnigan, who's like a producer for Worldwide Pants now, and he's on like 30 Lettermans. He's great. I call him, well, because I go down and I blow, and it's like 0.4, like legally dead, and I was like, oh, no, like I'm screwed. Because if this counts down, not only am I stuck here in Omaha, I'm going to prison now, even though I've been good this whole time. So I call him, and I'm like, dude, there's like 10 minutes on this thing. Like, can you just come? And he's like, I drank last night. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm trying to rinse my mouth out, and if I do it again, I know it's going to go off. So he runs, and I mean, it was like the last scene of a movie where the team wins. Like, it was like 5, 4, 3, 2, and on 1, I'm not kidding, he blows into the thing, it hits all zeros, and my car starts.
Wow.
I was like, oh, thank God, because I would have gone to prison.
Oh, no.
So it was like that day, and then after that, I didn't want to, it stopped, nothing was fun about it anymore. Like, I realized I had started doing drugs because my dad was diagnosed with brain cancer. We were a very tight family. And he was diagnosed by, it was Agent Orange in Vietnam. And his insurance company said it's a pre-existing condition, possibly since birth, and the VA said, yeah, that too. So they gave him nothing.
Oh.
So my parents were going basically from, my dad had just become like pretty wealthy actually from hard work, and was now spending like the few $1 million that he made to the point that he was almost poor, which actually led to my mom's suicide, losing him. You know, so it was like we were this like perfect family. My dad ran Little League. We had our issues. My mom had her issues, but we were a normal American middle class family until, and now they've proven that soft cell sarcomas were a result of Agent Orange. The VA still doesn't do anything for us because we were 18 when he died. Even though he suffered for 5 years, wasn't able to be there as a father, wasn't able to be around, had to go to different places in the country to get the surgeries done, had a halo drilled into his head for half of it. Like, so I was dealing with the abandonment of a teenager because you don't have the perspective you should of what's going on with you. You just know that you miss your family and that you feel isolated. So it was like, it was this certain things that were happening to me.
Sure.
And then I had a family.
I can't imagine going through both of these experiences.
Yeah, and then I had a family friend who was staying with me, and she had been addicted to drugs and was stealing them from work. She was a nurse, and we didn't know that. So she got caught during that and ended up going home and killing herself with those. And then during that, 3 of my friends were killed in 2 very, very, very close friends were killed in a brutal car accident. So I had all this stuff that kept hitting me, and and not to make that about me, is way worse for the families and stuff, but when I drive a kid to school every day that I see every day, I see dead against a tree, it messes with you. Mm-hmm. So I had all these things that drove me into a darker and darker and darker place, and that kept leading to arrest. But the truth is I didn't want to be alive anymore. I didn't get life. I didn't get the point. I wasn't happy. I've been depressed since I was 10. I don't know why. So it's like I was just constantly drinking. And that led to everything else. So I would do cocaine so I could be up to get drunk. But then I would get drunk so I wouldn't have to feel anything. And I would get blackout drunk. I didn't drink to taste it or to get a buzz or to have fun. I drank to be dead. That's all I wanted. And I operated that way until I was 27. From the time I was 14.
Okay.
So for 13 years, I operated that way. And as my mom's depression got worse, as my dad died, and she waited years, but when I was a little older, she killed herself as a result of it because she just couldn't live without my father. And she was a nurse, bipolar, everything, and she did pills just like my family friend did. She didn't take them ever recreationally. She just knew how to get them because she's very intelligent. Again, nurse at the hospital I was born in. She killed herself and just left a note that said, "I'm going to meet your father." And it was like, and still the VA, the only reason why I even go at the VA is because it's like, you owe us something. Mm-hmm. I don't even care if it's monetary. It's like, how about just an apology or a thank you because you stole everything from me?
Not only that, but the result of a man serving his country
was nothing. He was drafted. Right out of college. Like, he seriously got home, and it's like, yeah, with my luck, my draft, oh, there it is. So I had to live with that. So for me, it was confusing because we had so much. And then eventually we moved on, to where this was happening. And then, I turned to drugs. I turned to the street. And I realized it didn't help. I gave my parents hell. I totaled my dad's car the day I got my driver's license. That was pretty cool. I was driving, and I decided to do a high-speed chase I was like giving lawn jobs, which I know sounds sexual, but it's just when you pull up on somebody's lawn and you just start spinning your tires.
Right. You see those on golf courses. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was doing it with a Regal, though. A Buick Regal.
Oh, no.
And then I got on a high-speed chase with the dude. And I was driving down the street, and I didn't see that it took this hard left turn. So the car popped up in the air and hit a tree. Now, I'd already gone down to the ghetto and paid a homeless dude to go into this place on 8 Mile and buy us beer.
Oh, no.
So I didn't know that in the trunk, my dad never drank, so I would have never even looked. We did have a family reunion that weekend, though. So there was about 8 cases of beer, potato chips, dip, everything. So when I hit the tree, the trunk exploded, and like a Super Bowl party just rolled out with this river of beer and chips just leading up to his car. And I was knocked unconscious by the airbag. My 3 friends weren't. So they all ran.
Oh, boy.
And then I woke up to the police just sitting there at the end of a river of beer.
And so it began.
Yeah, and my dad was a very tough dude, and he never really put hands on me. But that day he did, because I remember he goes, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah." Then he hit me. And somebody goes, "Did the airbag break your nose?" And I was like, "Yeah, we'll go with that."
Oh, no. My goodness, man. So you now have a son of your own.
Yes.
And he's obviously very important to you.
Very much.
You list him as the individual who's had the biggest impact on your life. How so? Tell us. I mean, I could answer this just as a dad as well, but I mean, obviously it changes you.
It gives you a reason to live and someone to live for, because you realize there's one thing about higher power in sobriety, because you find God and you realize you're not the center of the universe and there's so much more that's important than you. Like, I think it's important for somebody to be humbled, but there's nothing more humbling to me, I think, than having children, because you realize you're not that important, but if you play it right, you're their world. And if you just do the best job you can, like, you realize you realize in a moment that's all that matters. Like, all that matters is your life with these people in the end. So everything else you've ever been shooting for, even if it's like money, power, whatever you want with your life, that wasn't mine necessarily, but like fame, comedy, whatever it is for me, none of that matters. I would rather trade a $40,000 gig for a weekend with my son, like we went to WrestleMania. You couldn't pay me any amount of money to take that weekend away. You know, so it gave me value in what it meant, and it also gave me perspective of how my dad saw me, because I never got to know that, because he died before we could really bond as adults or even come close to it.
Yeah.
So the way that it matters is it kind of brought my life full circle in knowing how my dad viewed me, and it gave me a reason to live when I couldn't find one.
It's well said. And you also list sobriety as being very important to you. So you stopped drinking at 27 then?
I stopped drinking at 27, but I relapsed a couple times, and it's been 11 years since I've had a drink.
Okay.
So, it's been 11 years.
Good for you, man. How old are you now?
I'm 39.
Okay. All right. Kudos. I didn't start drinking really until I was 35. So what, 10 years now? I should have never started.
Yeah. Did you quit?
No.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong. I mean, that's when I hang out with people, that it's always weird when they're like, do you mind if I drink? Like, my best friend from childhood owns a bar in Detroit. So I go up there and I see my old friends. I see all kinds of people. Like, I have all my friends from when I was young, because they weren't drinking buddies or anything. They were my friends. Then we all got into stuff. And some of my friends, honestly, could control it the whole time.
Yeah.
They were very well. They achieved everything. They drank. They went to college. They did fine. Then there was me, who was like the guy you want around to prove that your drinking isn't so severe.
Right. There you go. See?
And I was fun. I mean, that's the thing, is every night wasn't bad. We had really good times, and, but, it ended up getting very bad for me.
Yeah.
But I just go there now, and it's like I just get an iced tea, hang out with people, and it never bothers me to see.
Are you the forced, is the designated driver status forced on you?
Thank God there's Uber now.
Okay, yeah, okay, good point.
For a minute, it was a lot.
I bet.
Where it's like I'm just driving home drunk people who want to sing 80s music, and I just want to like pull over and just leave them at a White Castle in the middle of the ghetto. It's just the worst.
See, I don't get hangovers. And
How?
I'm just glad that I didn't discover that, quote, superpower when I was younger. Or who knows?
Good for you.
Right.
Because when I was young, I didn't get hangovers, but I think it's just because your liver is so, like...
Yeah.
And don't take my advice on
Right.
this if you're
No,
young.
no.
But for me, when your liver's so young, you can, you can process stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like 15. I remember the first time I got drunk, my friend legally died. He did live at the end of the story. So, but my mom came downstairs. My dad had just been diagnosed, and we found my dad's stash of liquor. Again, he didn't drink. He was an Irishman, but he never drank because his dad abandoned him his father was a drunk. So one day, we found his stash of liquor. He had a fifth, and it was something that he won in the golf tournament, in a golf tournament in the 70s. This was 1996.
Oh, no.
So we polished off the fifth while trying to watch the movie Spy Hard with Leslie Nielsen. Yeah. So my mom comes down, and my friend Brian and I awake to my mom screaming and like trying to wake up my friend Ray on this beanbag chair, whose mom's like a judge in the city, just like screaming to like wake him up, and he's like blue.
Wow.
So they call 911. I'm so hammered, I go upstairs, and right when I round the corner, I see a stretcher, and I assume it's my bed. So I just curl up on the stretcher, and then they come up carrying Ray, and they're like, get up. And I'm just not even responding either. So they just tipped me off the stretcher, put him on it, and left. Then a police officer comes upstairs, a detective, and he was good. He walked upstairs. He's like, now I need to know what Ray's been doing. And we did find this bottle downstairs, so I need to know if this is what happened. And he pulls out a bottle of non-toxic Elmer's wood glue. So my friend Brian and I, we're two drunk.
Oh, no.
We're two drunk kids now laughing in a man's face. And Brian's like, way to go, Columbo. You didn't notice the empty fifth? I'm like, he did it again, Kojak. I'm like, you're the worst. Like, way to go, MacGyver. We're just naming every detective we could possibly, just throwing it at him. And the guy's like, whatever. You're lucky I don't arrest you and your parents. Like, he walks away all mad. So funny. But yeah, we ended up having to have a meeting the next day, like, with his parents and, like, everybody to talk about, like, what we had done and everything. And yeah, that was the first time I drank he, like, nothing, just to give an idea of, like, the years to come. That was just, like, this crazy moment, so.
So instead of scaring you sober right then, it was just the beginning.
Oh, it was crazy.
So you are married. Your wife is Tammy.
Yes.
Where'd you guys meet?
Second City.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So how long have you been married?
She would do the same answer. 14 years.
14 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, quick math here by me, you were still drinking then.
Yes.
Was there ever a moment where it was either her or the bottle?
It became that, but I was because I had found comedy, I that was so important to me. But I've also said, like, I've said that and then had club owners be like, do you remember some of your late shows? Like,
no.
It's not like I ever walked people,
Right.
but I was drunk and saying whatever I wanted to audience members. Yeah, towards the end, it got to the point where it was really, she couldn't take it anymore. And it started where we were, like, her waking me up and there's just damage to my car and it's like clear I hit a parking barrel, and it's like, where were you, what was this? I was like, oh, a semi truck tried to cut me off and I hit a parking barrel, when I didn't even remember what happened. And I would have like a just enough of a flashback to realize that when I was getting on the freeway, I just stopped paying attention and just hit a parking barrel. So it was little stuff like that would build up, like the harder my drinking got.
Did you, and I'm not being flippant,
No.
perhaps you forgot, but did you ever come close to dying yourself?
Yeah.
How many times, I guess I should say, do you think you nearly avoided dying?
I was beaten pretty severely by police in my backyard. And when they arrested me, I got to the hospital and my blood alcohol level was so far above lethal. When they pumped my stomach, like it basically became an emergency. Like I was no longer there for the beating I took. I was there because of the amount of alcohol that was in my system. But the crazy part is I remember every bit of that. It could have been the beating waking me up, but it was also, the amount of alcohol that was in my system. But there's, many, many times where I remember one night, I don't remember what happened. I remember we were all on drugs and drinking, and the last thing I remember is my friend Joe beating up a vacuum cleaner at a hotel, and I woke up on my driveway, my parents' driveway, and like the neighbors weren't surprised or anything. I had no idea how I got there. There's just vomit everywhere. There are so many times that I know I poisoned myself because even as I got older, like 17, 18, that's when I started realizing that I was messing with myself. When I was first going to rehab, they were letting me know, like, your liver is you're dealing with cirrhosis now.
Oh, boy.
Which can be reversed, thankfully. Like, not because it wasn't fully there, but it can be reversed as long as you take better care of yourself. Your liver is an organ that can heal as long as it's not fully cirrhotic.
Oh, good to
But
know.
I had a pretty damaged liver. Yeah, I had a pretty damaged liver for a kid. damaged stomach, ulcers, all that stuff. And it was just because, honestly, my dad, like, because he was sick, he had insurers that were really just hospital food at the time in a can. So I would drink like 2 of those a day so I could just party all day. And those would be my meals. And then the rest of it was just booze.
How's your health now?
It's better. I mean, I've gone and got physicals. They're like, you got to drop like 10 pounds or whatever. But my livers are fine. My enzymes are fine.
Good job.
Yeah.
Nice job, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, as far as the booze and like the organ damage I've done, it's better. The problem is like you always have something. So for me, it's, I'll have cake or ice cream, whatever it is that I just want to. There's always this dopamine release in my brain that I know that I have to live with. But if I have to let the beast out every now and then at like birthday cake, it's fine. Because I'd rather be like, yeah, I drank a milkshake than, well, I drank 16 beers and half a pint of vodka and drove into a church on a Sunday.
I gotcha.
Yeah, it's just better to be. It's just. You don't wake up from a milkshake and be like, I'm sorry that I hurt everyone's feelings.
I had to have the whipped cream. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned you have your wife Tammy, your son Wyatt.
Yes.
Obviously, having a family has had a great impact on you.
Yes.
And that's great. I hate this question that I'm about to get to here, but talk about your pets. You've got a couple of dogs, and you recently lost a dog, Madison.
Yes.
I just hate that. I mean, from the second we get our pets and start bonding with them, we have in the back of our mind that just slowly works itself to the forefront of, oh my gosh, one of these days, I'm going to lose this pet. And it sucks.
It was the first time I'd ever been part of putting down a dog was my first Rottweiler, Natasha. And this was my dog, Madison. But this dog was like my dog. That was my wife's when I met her. But Natasha was only like a puppy. So she was really everything to me too. But Madison, for some reason, just linked to me.
Mm-hmm.
So if I came home, she was my shadow. No matter what, she was by my side. She was very, like, everything was me and her. Like, she was everything to me. I don't know how else to explain it because when I was young, I didn't have that. I felt very lonely and isolated when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I finally had something that I just loved so much and so unconditionally and loved me for the same way. And it was amazing because we never spoke a word. You know, right? It's like, it's a dog, but it's like we just knew each other. It was one of the most wonderful relationships I've ever had. And yeah, when I had to take her to put her down, I just knew how much pain she was in. And when she was coughing so hard the night before, and you try to do everything, but you're also there's a grift to like, we can do the chemo, but it's like, it's just because we're being selfish and it's not real and it's going to work. It's not really going to work. Mm-hmm. And there's that, and then you can give it painkillers, but let's be honest, dogs have a great pain threshold. So they're in serious pain. They're just not acting it out.
Right.
I
mean, that's the one thing that I would love to have. That superpower is to, when your kids are so young they can't talk and communicate.
Yeah.
And same with animals.
Yes.
I wish you could just talk to me. Please tell me where's the pain.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And those are the two. Well, that's the hardest thing in the world. Like when my son could first communicate, there was so much. It was so relieved because for years when you can't figure it out,
right?
Like I remember when I found out he had like the acid reflux, like that. Yeah, and he's fine now. I mean, it all worked. But I remember I took him to the children's hospital, and they put him up in one of those this like I don't know if you call it a gurney, but they just put him on this machine. And they're going to spin him around. He's like, 1, dude. And they're like, all right, we need you to leave the room. And I was like, I'm not leaving the room. He's in here.
Right.
And they go, well, you have to. The radiation's stronger on you. I go, great. Give me a vest. And they go, that might not do it. I go, give me a vest. And they go, all right. So they can't. I mean, they got it. And they went and got me a vest. And they go, but it's at your own risk. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, give me a vest. So I put it on, and, I was with them the whole time because they're spinning a baby around, Like and he doesn't know what's going on.
Right.
And fortunately they were very good. As in Detroit Children's Hospital, they were amazing, nicest people. They figured it out right away, put him on this Prilosec, and honestly, 6 months later it disappeared. And I was so relieved because it was burning him. Like you could smell it, Yeah. And it was just one of those weird things that, not even weird, it was one of those extraordinarily common things that happen with babies.
Has Wyatt, to this point, ever had to be put under, unconscious, for a procedure or anything like that?
Surgery.
Okay.
In June, I was at my buddy's mom's funeral, and at the time my wife stopped over at her friend's house, and there's this big playscape in their backyard that's like, 11 feet high, and they say, don't jump off of it. Don't jump off of it. So the first thing they do is when they see that the parents aren't looking is run back. Now, his friend landed a lot better than him, so his buddy hits the ground. He's fine. My son hits the ground and tumbles sideways and pretty much breaks his humerus bone in half. And it's now like, it's very close to a nerve, so they don't know what damage is done. So he's screaming, and I'm doing everything I can to try to figure this out. We're going to the hospital. I'm doing everything. He can't stop crying. It's the worst feeling I've ever had in my life. So, and it's even one of those things where, like, they didn't call in child services because they saw how upset we were. It's like, yeah, this isn't an issue with it. Like, these are parents who are very upset. We laid with him in the hospital all night. Once they gave him the drugs, it pretty much just got funny because he was so relieved and just started talking, and it was just nice to see him. And the next day they got him right into surgery. They were great, and like they brought him out, and I was so relieved. And dude, they heal like Wolverine, man. Mm-hmm. Like it was supposed to be like 6 weeks. 3.5 weeks later, they took off the cast, and he was fine.
That's so great.
And he's fine now. But it's like he learned the lesson of like, when we're telling you not to jump off things that are that high, we're not doing it because we hate you. We're doing it because we love you.
Right.
And it sucks because it's that lesson. Mm-hmm. My brother learned that lesson when he was a kid, when he shattered his knee, jumping off a really high a part of our garage. Oh. And I watched him. So I was like, oh, yeah, I don't want to do that. And he's screaming and crying. And I'm like, oh, lesson learned.
Lesson learned. Is that not the most helpless feeling in the world as a parent during those minutes when your child is out?
You give anything for it to change.
I mean, in the moment they are awake, it is like the weight of the world comes off of you finally.
You're just praying to, like, just rewind time and break my arm. Just let me, just take my arm, let him go back, just do whatever, take both my arms, just make it so he's not. Because you can't do anything. And you don't want to, like, upset anybody at the hospital either because they're doing the best they can. Mm-hmm. But you want to be like, you have a doctor, right? So just do it. Like, and you don't want to be a pushy, like, right. Because there's a way that things work, And for my son, it was somewhat beneficial because once he was, like, in the cast, we were in a children's hospital. So he's seeing kids that are bald and have cancer and sick. And he's kind of, like, looking, like, and asking me questions. And I'm like, you just have to remember how lucky you are. It's like, this is very bad, but you're going to heal from this. But I'm like, and I hate to give him that wake-up call when he was 6.
Yeah.
But I'm like, a lot of these kids won't leave here. And that's just it. But it was a sad reality I had to tell him because you might be there, but there's a mom screaming and crying, and he wants to know why. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie to him because he already kind of knows. Because assuming your kid's an idiot is not the way to do it. Kids can feel it. Kids are like a sponge. They know more than you think they do. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, not everybody gets out of here, and that really gave him a wake up call. And just, I wish that I knew how not invincible I was. Because the second I became a teenager, I certainly forgot. Because you think that you can do anything and that you're going to live forever. You're never going to be older.
Yeah.
You're always going to be a teenager, and you make the worst mistakes you possibly can. And that's just something that I really want to be there for him for, because he may not believe it, but it'd be like, look, dude, everything that you think you could do, I've done worse. There's no way.
Perspective, huh?
Yeah.
So you have some hobbies here. I got to tell you, I've been playing golf forever. almost 35 years.
Really?
And I'm horrible.
Yeah, I suck.
Okay,
I've been playing my whole life.
Right? So I was going to ask you, what's your handicap, you know?
Oh, I don't even.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to go play, man. This sounds like I finally found someone sitting in that chair.
The worst.
It was a big deal for me, and I've told this story. I'm sorry, y'all. But it took me, what was it? Over 15 years of playing often, regularly, before I broke 100.
Oh, really? I think I've broke 100 twice.
Oh my gosh, we would be okay. We're playing. We're playing.
Yeah, like I'll substitute in leagues every now and then when I'm like back home in Detroit, and my friends are just like, just pick the ball up at points, you know.
Like they don't even want you finishing the hole.
Yeah, like most of them are very encouraging, but my brother's like, sometimes though, I will do really well. Like I remember one time I won a driver. Because I got closest to the pin.
Okay.
But it's because I used a driver on a par 3 and I just did a half swing.
Improvise, man.
It worked.
Yeah.
And and what sucked, it was an inch from the hole, so I won a driver. Had it gone in the hole, I would have won a Hummer. The car. But yeah, like I seriously would have won. It was a Hummer H3.
Oh, were you waiting for the win?
Yeah, like I was like serious, but I did get a driver. I got like a Callaway out of it. But yeah, it was that close, and it was like those little things that. Yeah. And my brother's like, this would have been hilarious because they would have to give you a golden driver for a par 3.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, man, you get one good shot at 18 holes. That's what keeps you coming.
That's
back.
why I play like at least once or twice a game. I'll do a shot where I'm like, oh wow, that was me.
Yeah.
Like even when I go with my friends,
Right.
I'll have one drive where for some reason I can't drive all day, then all of a sudden it's 300 yards and straight, and I'm like, where did that come
Right,
from?
I can knock the snot out of the ball, but it's 2 fairways over. All right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's like 280, 300 and straight, which is great for me. I know people can do much farther, but for me it's crazy. And then other times it's like, all right, 70 feet, ladies' tees.
I'm telling you, man, it's all mental. It's all mental.
It's confidence. Yeah. But it's a skill. Like you're born with it, and then it has to be sharpened.
What is you enjoy watching movies? What's your favorite movie of all time? Then,
I was answering this the other day on our show, and I said Ghostbusters, but I put it along the lines probably because that's one of the movies I watched with my dad, and I just loved it as a kid. But there's so many that it's hard to name. But I do love Dazed and Confused just because I think it encapsulated my group of friends in the 90s that was very much the exact same lifestyle. And I don't know if we were trying to relive the 70s or it was just very similar to that, but it really struck a nostalgia chord with us. So, but I felt that was a perfect film because it just encapsulated youth and rebelliousness and like being at that last step before adulthood and just kind of that teen stupidity that is really so wonderful that I don't know if it exists anymore. Like with the internet, phones, everything, it was sort of that last bit of freedom that a generation had, that our generations had that I don't think will ever be experienced again. And it's sort of a perfect spot on vision of what that was.
I'm telling you, the 90s is the greatest decade.
Dude, I remember standing with a bunch of my friends talking about how the 90s suck, and I don't know why that stuck in my head, because it was the 90s. Because 1998, we're all just drinking at a pier, hanging out with all our friends, in the middle of the hood, throwing a kegger, and it's like, that didn't suck, that was the best. It's like at the time, we're like... Little
did we know.
It would never get better.
High water mark.
That sucks.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. You enjoy going to concerts. What's the most memorable concert you've been to?
Boy, it's a tough one. Alice Cooper was amazing.
I bet.
I really would say that. Paul Simon and Bob Dylan together in the 90s, that was good because you could still understand Bob Dylan. It's not like now where you just like, what's he playing? I don't know, and I don't care, really. But that was amazing, and Ween live at Bonnaroo while I was on just a mountain of ecstasy was pretty good.
And see, okay, when you started to say that, I was thinking to myself, I don't know that I would enjoy a Ween concert. And then you mentioned the ecstasy, and I thought, I could probably enjoy a Ween concert.
Oh, it was so good. And then, I loved. So it's hard to say. It's like one of those things where I've seen so many greats that I've been lucky enough. One of the best things about living in New York when I was on my last show was I'd leave and I'd just see it was at Madison Square Garden. I'd go, oh, it's Clapton, it's Elton John, it's whoever, and I would just buy a ticket for me and whoever was with me and just go watch a legend. So, but Jason Isbell is somebody who I really like and connect with, and he was in the Drive-By Truckers, and seeing him live was something that was pretty extraordinary, as well as Sturgill Simpson.
Have you been to concerts in the post-COVID era?
Who did I go see? I have, yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of who, though. I don't know why I don't remember, which is making me sad.
Because I tried to go, my wife and I were going to go see Counting Crows. It was going to be my first concert. I did the math on this since 2004.
Okay, really?
I don't get out much.
Okay.
And plus, once you see a Better Than Ezra concert, I mean, nothing can top that.
Do you get better? You know what is great about Better Than Ezra, though?
What?
Do you know why they're called that?
Yes, it's a line from a book. Unless you have a different story, because there's several stories.
I think this is the real one, and I hope it's true.
Okay.
Maybe it's not, but I hope it's true. I heard that they beat a band named Ezra in a contest. So they named themselves Better Than Ezra.
I am a Better Than Ezra fanboy.
That's what I've
never heard that story.
It's what I've heard,
wow.
And I really hope it's true.
I hope it is too.
Ezra does sound like a band. So to name your band Better Than Ezra because you beat them,
that is awesome.
Is like the best story. That's why it's one of my favorite band names ever.
Let's go with that. Let's go with that.
I like that story.
Yeah, that's better than the one that I thought. Okay, that's good.
It sounds right though.
I love.
Because why else would you call it? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So 93 was a big year for you.
93.
Or was 94? What year did their big album drop?
93.
Yeah, 93, right?
94.
Yeah, because it was the same time as Offspring Smash.
Deluxe.
It was like when Offspring broke out of sort of the punk underground. Better Than Ezra kind of exploded. There was a huge coming of all these bands that year. I remember it because it was when I was getting into music. Nirvana kind of came out. Even though they were out there, it sort of broke from being like somewhat mainstream to just explosive, you know. Not Foo Fighters was years later, but Pearl Jam, because we had 10, but then that was like, I think Versus came out. It was like all around that time.
Yeah, in the 90s. And I will say that, I mean, this is nerd central for Keith here, but Better Than Ezra's album, How Does Your Garden Grow?
Yeah, I know that album. It's a great album.
Oh, it's the only album, I can't believe I'm saying this. It's the only album, Dave, that I say the track listing was done in proper order.
Yes.
That I don't have to rearrange. It's perfect. How Does Your Garden Grow? Better Than Ezra, my favorite album of all time.
Yeah, that's, for me, that's, is it southwestern, southeastern? I'm trying to think of Jason Isbell's album, but that's another album that's listed where you go, oh, this is exactly what an album should be.
Right.
And so many albums you listen to are like, boy, you're all over the place. It's been quite a story.
And I think the 90s not only the peak decade to be growing up in, but also the best decade for music. That's my take.
A lot of people don't like it, but I honestly, well, people say that now too, where they're like, well, music's crap, and I'm like, well, actually, there's so much music, it's never been better. Like, you can find all the music that's ever been invented. Like, everything's great. It's just you're only focusing on whatever is poppy. It's like, if you look back, there's so much music available right now.
Yeah.
There's really no better time to be alive music-wise than right now.
How you can just type in a song or speak a song into a phone and then it's playing.
Yeah, or you hear a song and you're like, oh, I remember this, and you hit a button.
Oh my gosh, what was life like? Let me tell you, life before Shazam or SoundHound or whatever, you literally had to ask around, maybe call a radio station.
Yeah.
I remember humming a song to a guy that I worked at a radio station. It was 1999, I believe it was. And I remember humming the song to him. Most obscure song, but Radio Boy, how you doing out there? Anyhow, 96 Rock. I mean, all this music stayed in his head. It was Freddie Johnston's Bad Reputation. I mean, and I had I was like, thank you. Anyway.
Yeah, that was one where we were asked on the show last week, what was your favorite one-hit wonder song in the 90s? And it was... mine was Space Hog In the Meantime.
That's
And, like,
another underrated album.
Oh yeah, and all these people were like, "Oh my, that was it!" Like they had forgotten about it over all these years.
Yes.
And like, no, it was a really good band that people just kind of forgot about for whatever reason.
And there are so many great songs on that specific album.
Yeah.
That's
and there was just, and I was a huge rap fan, so for me, '90s was also an era that I loved because it was when the best rap came out, bar none. I don't think it will ever get better than that, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a rap fan, but I can listen to songs from that era.
Oh, for sure. I don't think you have to be because I mean that's when you started splicing in funk, like all kinds of stuff were started coming out in that era that was new.
Huh. Yeah, that's a good point.
And gangster rap was just fun because if you're any way anti-establishment, it's pretty cool to listen to.
Let's see here. You got to tell me, what's this book? Danny Trejo has a book called Trejo? What?
Yeah, it's the best book I've read. Danny Trejo, do you know who he is?
No.
From Machete, the movie?
Again, let's go back to my premise. I don't get out much.
Yes. Let's try.
Oh, no.
Do your kids watch any of are you familiar with Robert Rodriguez, who did Dusk Till Dawn?
Let's go to the next question.
Okay.
No. So what's it about? I don't.
Well, Danny Trejo was like a B-movie actor.
I know who he is.
Yeah.
He's all scruffy and stuff.
Yeah, he's probably like 80 now.
I know exactly who he is.
And he saved somebody's life not even too long
totally
ago in
know
traffic.
Who this guy is.
He's the best.
Yes.
So it's all about his journey from being a drug addict and a drug dealer, going into prison, coming out, and how he became a star over time. And he talks about, you're talking about when he was almost 65 years old. Yeah, he says I had 30 grand in a Range Rover, and that was all I had accumulated after 25 years in Hollywood. And he goes, then I realized I should be grateful because most people don't have that. And he talks about how he gave a lot of the money away, went and lived with his son, and then all of a sudden the role Machete came and more stuff, Trejo's Tacos, all this stuff. And, now he's a millionaire.
Wow.
But it's all his life. Yeah, and he was a guy who was on film sets because he always would play the con. He was in the movie Con Air, obviously.
Yeah,
He was in,
I've seen him in so many roles.
Yeah, Blood In, Blood Out. And that was funny because he's talking about being on the set of that where the actors want to stay in character. And he's like, dealing with actors can be a headache because they're like, well, I don't want to wear the bulletproof vest right now and we're not filming. And the director would be like, can you tell them why they got to wear the bulletproof vest? He'd be like, because if there's a riot, they're going to shoot you. And they're like, okay, we'll wear the vest. And he talks about meeting Edward James Olmos, who would show up to meetings for doing the movie American Me, which he's not in, and he would show up dressed like a cholo. And Danny Trejo, who came from gang country, in LA, is like, what are you doing? Why are you dressed like this?
Oh no.
And he decided to take I guess you could call it artistic license with a character who's a real story. So talk about how he was a rape baby and all this other stuff. And Danny Trejo went and talked to the actual guy. And he's like, don't do that movie. He's like, we don't want him to make this movie. So he goes and tells him, don't make the movie, dude. Do not make American Me the way that you're going to make it. And Edwin James Olmos is like, no, it's fine. I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. And then he put it out that if anybody was an extra or anything in that movie that isn't just he didn't care about the actors. He's like, actors are actors. They're going to make a living. I don't care. But if you're going to stand in the background and you're a member of, of our mafia, you're going to pay. So, Danny Trejo's talking about, there were people in the background sitting in cars that ended up dead because of that movie.
Because of why?
Just because the leader of the Mexican mafia, Edward James Olmos, decided to make a movie about his life, but decided to say that his dad was a zoot suitor who raped his mom, which wasn't true.
Oh.
They wanted to say...
And anybody connected.
And he died in prison in a very noble way. But they made it look like he died. He died in prison to protect all of his people. But they made it look like he died in prison because his own people killed him, stabbed him to death.
Oh. No.
So the guy under him is you can't do we'll let you make the movie, but you can't because everybody's got their hands in everything. You know how it is in show business. And
if you screw up this story,
and he talks about he's like, right, this is not the guy's life. You need, first of all, his dad didn't rape his mom. He's not a rape baby. And secondly, he died standing up for his gang. He didn't get killed by his own men. Change those. And he's like, no, I want to tell it this way.
Oh, no.
So Danny Trejo's book is this very in-depth look at what it was like to be in a gang, a drug addict, prison, having kids, everything that he talks about. It's one of the best books I've ever read because it's just a life very well lived and a lot of lessons learned. And it's just a very cool story from an accidental Hollywood star who came along later because they were making a children's movie. Robert Rodriguez made a bunch of children's movies where it was like Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Okay.
And they had an Uncle Machete. So they just had Danny Trejo play Uncle Machete. And then Robert Rodriguez thought, you know what, I'm going to just make a movie called Machete that's a B movie where you're just going around kicking everybody's butt. And that's how he became Machete. And they're great movies. They're great fun. And it's just he's just a very very interesting guy
and so recognizable.
Yeah.
I never knew his name.
A lot of people don't.
To me, he was just he's the guy that's in every movie that I've seen.
He's always like the bad guy.
Yeah. Favorite book is I Fatty by Jerry Stahl.
One of them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What's that? What's that about?
It's a half fictional take on Fatty Arbuckle and his fall from fame.
Oh.
When he was accused of assault.
A complete lie.
It was a total lie.
Yeah.
But he's a character that I've always found interesting because you're talking about like the Little Rascals and stuff. He was a guy who was the first person to ever make $1 million in Hollywood. He signed a 3-picture deal with, I believe, Warner Brothers. So he was a millionaire, and this is during the silent films. Wow. They accused him of doing something which he couldn't have done because his body couldn't do that. So they said it was a Coke bottle, and that ended up none of it was true. But they'd already put him, and this is when there was just those pictures. There's nothing else. There's no other way to get news. So they ruined his life, but then acquitted him, and then he was still never able to be a bankable star ever again, and he died shortly after. And it's basically Jerry Stahl, who's an excellent writer. He was a heroin addict, and he was one of the writers for the show Elf, if you can believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's his version of of real fact and what he thinks he went through. So it's a very interesting book because you don't know that it's all real and it's not all fake, but it's sort of like the emotional journey that he thinks like Fatty Arbuckle went through during this time. And that's what I love about the book is because it's this sort of interesting view of like understanding the human that he was and guessing of what it was like for him.
Is it clear in the book that, what I think happened here?
No, it's very like dead on.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very intertwined between fiction and nonfiction.
Tell me about the app Shoutout.
Shoutout is a brand new app. You can get it. It has more conservative people on it who don't want to necessarily go to Cameo or write Zer on their thing. But yeah, you can get anybody from, me, Crowder, the Hodge twins. There's a ton of pretty big names on there. And yeah, it's the same. It's like Cameo, but for more right wingers, I guess.
Okay.
I don't mind being on there. I love doing it.
Oh, that's
so it's
cool.
just fun. I bought like $300 worth of stupid costumes at Party USA, and just it's just fun to do. Like make somebody's day really quick, and if anybody wants one, they go to Shoutout, and I don't charge very much. So
okay, Shoutout, yeah, all right. I gotta check that out, man. That sounds like fun. Look for Dave over there.
It's not bad.
Yeah. 5 possessions. What would they be? Your dogs.
Yes.
If that's a possession.
Yes.
As you put in parentheses there, it's a good point. Let's see, your Cadillac.
Yes.
We're going to come back to your third one because I have a bone to pick with you.
Okay.
Let's see, your photo albums. That's a good one, man.
Yeah.
Gosh. Your sobriety. That's good.
Yes.
We got to go back to your Sergei Fedorov autograph on your math homework, which, first of all, sounds very cool.
Yes.
I will just, full disclosure, in the era of Steve Yzerman, Sergei Fedorov, if you can believe this, growing up a kid in Atlanta, Georgia, the closest hockey team was the St. Louis Blues. So that was my team.
Wow, okay.
Right? I mean, that's before the Nashville Predators. The
Yeah.
Atlanta Thrashers have come and gone since then.
Well, my buddy Dave Legwan, a high school friend, I haven't talked to him in a long time, but he played for Nashville, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he played
Very
for the
cool.
Wings, too.
In Atlanta, you've had the Thrashers come and go, the Predators, like we just mentioned, up in Nashville, the Carolina Hurricanes, You got the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
But I mean, back when I was a kid, the closest team was the St. Louis Blues, and I was such a diehard Blues fan.
Yeah.
I have. This makes no sense. This truly, if you know me as a diehard Braves Falcons fan, the only jersey that I ever purchased was a St. Louis Blues jersey. And so I was in deep in high school. And I cannot tell you could, how many times the Red Wings ruined my day.
Oh, of course.
Every time we'd meet them in the playoffs, it was just a nightmare. So anyway, I grew to really dislike the Red Wings, Yzerman, Fedorov. I just wanted to throw that out there, but I totally respected them. How did you end up with Sergei Fedorov's autograph on your math homework? That sounds cool.
It was amazing. And well, part of it is just as a side thing, we had the Russian Five, which I met a woman who had a lot to do with the dealings, and she made a documentary movie about it to get them over. These are KGB soldiers, and then we also had Bob Probert, who was the enforcer, the king of fight. So it's like, we had that window of just the craziest team ever. Yep. But okay, so we're in my friend's car, and I have no intention of doing my homework. And it's my friend Anthony, my friend Brett, and we're just, I think we might have been skipping class, I don't know, but it's high. And we look over, and my friend's like, that's Sergei Fedorov. And I'm like, it is. And he's like, we should go over there. And I'm like, okay. He's like, go over there. I'm like, all right, I'll go over there.
Was he just sitting in a car? Or what
he was pumping gas at a gas station into his Porsche.
Captive audience.
Yeah. So I grab my math homework and I run over and I go, I don't mean to bother you, Mr. Fedorov. Can I have your autograph? And he's like, yeah, sure. So he signs it, right? And then there's this blonde girl who's smoking hot in shotgun. Yeah. So she goes, do you want my autograph too? And I go, why? And I walk back to the car and I get in. And they go, oh, no. Yeah, they go, what happened? And I go, oh, it was really nice. And then I'm like, I think his like trophy girlfriend or whatever wanted him to sign it too. And they're like, what do you mean? And I go, what? It's like some blonde girl. He goes, dude, that's Anna Kournikova. She's a professional tennis player. So I turned down Anna Kournikova as if she was nobody because I didn't know who she was.
That is awesome. That is hilarious.
Yeah, like I was just, because I was like a teenager in high. I didn't care. I was like, why? Why would I want your autograph?
So do you have the Fedorov autograph?
I still have it. You can see it on my Instagram. Yeah, like it's still on a green sheet of paper with algebra problems behind it.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Our math problems?
Yeah. And it's just Sergei Fedorov and the number, and it was really cool.
That is so cool.
And you would see them every now and then, just right around Detroit.
I changed my mind. Can I have your autograph now, Anna?
Yeah, and like normally, it was one of those things where you just wouldn't really necessarily approach certain people. We had that weird thing where like local newscasters were celebrities because like Mort Krim came out of there, and then you had like Bill Bonds was really well known, and like all these other people. So they were like Art Van Furniture. Like there were these people that were
that's cool,
like
man.
Giant celebrities, but they were also local. So like you would just see a lot of that because Detroit's like the step before you get huge, because the market's so big. Because it goes all over to like all of Michigan into Ohio, into all these other markets. Like it's huge. So yeah, it was always interesting to be around. So you never really would ask for an autograph. But I just had to because I had never seen a Red Wing that close to me.
That is awesome, man. Well, macaroni and cheese has to be done right. That's a fine balance there. That's your favorite comfort food.
Yes.
Okay, I like that. Is there any particular brand or any restaurant we need to know about that makes the best?
Slow's Barbecue in Detroit is just delightful. If you go there. And then Dallas, a lot of the barbecue joints, very delicious.
So, if you had to choose between Detroit barbecue and Dallas barbecue, which one's the best that you found so far?
So far, I gotta say, and it pains me, Texas barbecue.
Okay.
But Detroit has some of the best food on earth. I promise you that. People may not believe it, but remember,
I've never heard that.
We're an overweight Midwest city.
Okay.
Where all the cultures came to work at the auto companies, and you can get any good restaurant you want in Detroit, from Cuban to Italian to, well, not Irish unless you like potatoes, but yeah, it's telling you,
Okay.
Food there's
Underrated.
amazing. It's very underappreciated.
Okay. Very good. You're good at drawing cartoons.
I am, yeah.
That's an interesting fun fact there. Like, where do you publish them, or where do you?
No, I just drew them when I was a kid all the time, and then now I just draw them occasionally.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I just drew them over time, and that was one of the things that I would do.
Like comic strip stuff or cartoons you'd see?
Cartoons. Yeah, like more cartoons like you'd see on
Saturday
TV.
morning.
Yeah, or like a Simpsons or one of those sort of.
Okay.
Yeah, more cartooning, not really the extremely like pecked out superheroes.
Who's your what's your favorite cartoon, I guess, of all time that really I guess maybe inspired you to start drawing?
Oh gosh, South Park, but it didn't inspire me to start drawing.
Okay, all right.
I was much older, but I think my favorite cartoon ever by a landslide is South Park. When I was a kid, it was so much on. It was Garfield books, Calvin and Hobbes, The Far Side.
I'm telling you,
all that stuff.
Oh my gosh, that is literally you just kept going boom, boom, boom with my shelf when I was a kid. You know?
Yeah, that's exactly what I had.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
Gary Larson wrote me once. I sent him comics. I still have it. And he sent me 2 unpublished Far Sides in a letter. It was really cool.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
That's just the opposite of Calvin and Hobbes creator Bill Watterson.
Okay.
I was reading about him recently because I was thinking, man, I want to talk to that guy. And then I just read, and I was like, no, I don't. This guy is such a recluse.
Yeah.
Ever since he hung up, and I guess if you know this, he stopped doing Calvin and Hobbes stuff. He's basically just fallen off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
But while I was Googling around and stuff like that, his brother is this gregarious teacher down in Austin, Texas, who his students love him. He plays the guitar in the gym. He seems like, and I thought, I need to interview that guy.
Yeah, of course.
So anyhow, but I'm so glad that you had a good experience with Gary Larson.
Yeah, it was incredible.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, and I was young, but it was so cool that he sent that to me, and yeah, it meant a lot to me.
You should frame those and hang them next to the Sergei.
Yeah, I had them framed, and then I put them in just like a little bit of like a safekeeping like binder thing.
Cool.
That I gotta find.
I bet.
Because I put it away when I was a kid. Because there's that moment where you're like, I don't want to be a nerd anymore.
Oh, but it's somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, exactly.
And I always felt bad about that when I stepped away from things that I enjoyed.
How much time you got here? Because, we've been talking. I've never had a conversation this long.
You're good, man.
So thank you. Okay. I know you've crossed paths with tons of celebrities.
Yes.
I want you to tell us the story of your run-in with Mike Richards, who people would know as Kramer from Seinfeld.
Yeah, I was at the Comedy Magic Club. This is years ago, and it's in Hermosa Beach, California.
Okay.
And I was hosting the show. And in one room, there's a small showroom, and then the other room is the main room. And I was running back and forth doing double duty as the host and doing a set in the main room.
That doesn't sound like a fun night.
No, it's difficult. So on my show, I'm about to, in the green room is, people might know them, Dom Herrera, who's a legend, Kevin Nealon, Larry Miller, all these just huge, well-known. Daniel Tosh was there off in the corner. This is before he was huge. But just this is a place where you would go where you see, anytime you go to Comedy Magic Club, it's a lot of celebrities, a lot of people working out material, and it's a great room. Ran very, very well. Mm-hmm. And Michael Richards is there. And the manager comes up to me and goes, hey, you got to go get Mike's intro. And I'm like, who? Mike who? And he's like, Michael Richards. And I realized that he had just pulled up in 2 handicap spaces and had his Mercedes surrounded in cones is what I ended up finding out because me in the parking lot, I used to smoke cigarettes. I quit years ago. I quit in 2012, but me in the parking lot attendant was like, yeah, he pulled up vertically and then had it blocked with cones.
He's one of those guys?
He's an awful person. So he's now in the middle room, and there's a middle area between these where there's a couple lockers for the wait staff and stuff, and I get there and he's doing push-ups and I walk in. So I'm looking at Kramer doing push-ups and I'm really happy. And I walk in and I'm like, hey, how you doing, Mr. Richards? You're going up next, and I was just wondering if I can get an inch. And before I finish my sentence, he goes, doesn't it look like I'm busy right now? I go, yes, it appears you're doing push-ups, but I was wondering and then he kind of stands up and brushes himself off, and he goes, he goes, what the F do you want? And I go, well, I was just wondering if I could, get an intro from you. And he goes, yeah. And I go, look, I think it's getting tense. I go, we're going to go off to the wrong foot. My name's Dave. I'm a big fan. I'm just hosting the show tonight. And I go to shake his hand. He goes, yeah, I don't do that. I go, okay. I go, what would you like as your intro? He goes, what the F do you think that I want? And I was like, Seinfeld? And he goes, oh, so I'm washed up. I haven't done anything.
Oh.
And I go, trial and error? And he goes, okay, real funny. I was like, no, I'm wondering what you want me to say, and you're just being hostile.
God.
And he's like, well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go up on stage. You can just say my name. Don't worry. People know who I am.
Oh.
And when you're on stage, get off stage. Do not shake my hand. And when I'm done, you wait till I'm off. Then you come up, and you do not shake my hand. And then you do your time. Oh, okay. So Larry Miller, who's like a hero of mine, is like off to the side, was watching me go up on stage because he was going to be after Mike. So I go up on stage and I just do like 2 of my closers in a row just before I bring up Mike.
Your best stuff.
Yeah, just for fun. And it just crushes the crowd.
Yes.
And then I go, ladies and gentlemen, do I have a treat for you? Please welcome, you know him, Mr. Michael Richards. And I put my hand out with the biggest smile imaginable, so he has to come up and begrudgingly shake my hand.
Yes.
So the place is going crazy. And this is in the small room. So it's not even like full. So they're just like, they're loving it. Then he starts doing his stand-up, which is the worst thing you've ever seen. So after about 30 seconds, he's pulling a cocktail sword out of a glass. Larry Miller is going, that last bit you just did, pal, to me. He's like, that was one of the best bits I've ever seen. I loved it. And this is one of my heroes who plays a jerk in movies.
Yeah.
The nicest dude you could have ever met.
That's cool.
And now a guy who's the nicest dude on TV who was the most awful person.
Yeah.
So he's swashbuckling the air with a cocktail sword on stage to no laughter, to just utter disappointment.
You could hear people cough.
Oh, it was terrible. So finally he ends his set early, so I run up on stage to shake his hand again, and he just kind of like pats me twice on the back and runs off to his car. And I just like grabbed the mic and I was like, wasn't that amazing? Aren't you all glad you witnessed that? And I see like the manager in the back who liked me though, who was just kind of like shaking his head but like laughing because he knew what a dick he was.
Oh no.
So this is like a couple weeks later. I turn on TV and he's at the Laugh Factory screaming the N-word at people in the back room. And Jeff Garlin has a great story about that where he walks out after that night at the Laugh Factory and walked up to Jeff Garlin and goes, man, tough crowd tonight. And Jeff was like, do you know what you've done?
That is awesome. I can't stand that when people that you think are going to be this great experience and oh my gosh, what a treat I get to meet this person, and they completely destroy your view of them in 5 seconds.
Well, and most people are very nice, and most of the people, like I've met my heroes, I've met Dave Chappelle, I've met all these people that are amazing.
Yeah.
And most of the people who I was gonna be like a little afraid of, like Nick DiPaolo and all these, are the nicest. Colin Quinn, like these people that I really admire, were the coolest. And then a lot of times the people that you think will be the nicest aren't. And that was one of those cases. And I've had people say like, oh, I don't know, he was all right to me, I guess, but maybe he was just, or like he does that. That's not an excuse. Like you shouldn't be deliberately demeaning to somebody because they're hosting a show. And the reason why I was hosting the show was because I knew it was a good way to network. So I could meet all these people. So instead of going there and doing the easy job of doing just 7 minutes, I could host the entire show and meet people in Los Angeles. So I was doing the deliberate, harder job that nobody wanted to do.
Right.
You know, and it had nothing to do with where I was at in comedy. It just had to do with that's what I wanted to do because it was more of a challenge and I got to meet people.
Yeah.
So it's like for him to try to degrade me over it, it was just, you knew what it was, you know, and that was, and I mean, obviously he got humbled, but you can see where his ego was at for that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about a lot of comedians that you've, I guess, looked up to. I talked about meeting them. I think there's a story about your own comedic career that was, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was effectively blocked by Roseanne.
Yeah, it's weird because we have the same agent now, and yeah, it ended up being a little bit more nefarious than that, but yeah, and
Do you want to tell this or no?
no, I can. I mean, I never know exactly how to word it. We have the same agent now, and she's a fan, but I guess, but for a long time I didn't think so. So what happened was I was on Last Comic Standing, and I went into the semifinals, but they aired my entire set to open the entire show. Wow! So I had like this 5-minute primetime set.
Cool.
It was amazing. And Damon Wayans, who's my hero, because I used to watch In Living Color with my dad. He's one of my heroes. I absolutely love Damon Wayans, or Keenan Ivory Wayans. Damon Wayans was on the show, all the Wayans brothers, but Keenan was one of the judges, and he's the guy who did it first, you know, with I'm Gonna Get You Sucker and everything. So he loves me. Roseanne loves me. Russell Peters loves me. But Keenan goes, "You're going to win the whole thing." It was an amazing night.
Very
cool. Next day, we're hanging out at Universal City Walk in California, and I'm just thinking, like, it's weird I haven't been interviewed yet today. We're just kind of waiting. So my friend Tommy and I are, like, going on the Jurassic Park rides and stuff, just wasting time. I get a little bit of an interview, some other stuff, but it seems a bit strange. And then the next night, they really, like, they put, like, a suit on me, and it's not really, like, me on stage, like, the way that I would dress. And I'm kind of like one of the last to go up, but I kill. But I tell a joke. So I guess, yeah, put it this way. I tell a joke that she's like, "I don't get it." And it was a joke that was definitely very adult, but then me explaining it was getting harder laughs too, where I'm like, "You don't get it." And I'm like throwing it out there, and the place is just erupting.
Oh, no.
You know, and
so you're feeling good.
Yeah, and I thought she was enjoying it. And she's like, "Well, you're funny as hell, whatever." So that night, when they bring out everybody in the finals, they bring me front and center stage. And I've been jerked around in comedy a lot at this point. I'm front and center stage. I'm like, "Oh, this is great. Like, you've just brought me up to the front to move me along. This is cool." Everybody upstairs is like, "I had a bad set, whatever." I'm confident because I know it went well. So they call everybody's name and they call the names of everybody, and I'm not in it. And now, and I don't care because I know I signed a non-disclosure, but it doesn't matter because I've talked about it before and I will again because it was humiliating. I went from like this huge idea of like almost breaking into this Hollywood thing to now I'm in the basement of, I think it was the Ricardo Montalban Theater, talking to a crisis prevention counselor. So, and she has no idea what my background is, but I walk in, and mind you, my act was about like sobriety, having a breathalyzer in my car, being arrested. So she just goes, "Do you feel like hurting anybody?" I was like, "Well, kind of, but I'm not going to."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Do you feel like hurting yourself?" And I go, "No." She goes, "And why is that?" I go, "Well, because I can think of a lot of better reasons to kill myself than being on television." And she goes, "Oh, okay." So I'm now riding back in a van with one of the producers. We get back to the hotel, and she's been the whole time being like, "Oh, whatever, you did great, whatever, you know." And finally, we get to the elevator, and I'm just like, "F you," you know. I'm like, this whole thing you promised was going to be real, and it wasn't. Like, you lied. Like, this sucks. And I know that the comics that put this together, like Paige Horowitz was the producer and Wanda Sykes wanted it to be. But I know this was above them. It was an issue with who I was and what category I didn't fill. So the show airs, it explodes for me. Like, the night that it airs, people are like, "This first guy's amazing." Like, it's the first time I'm seeing like critical reviews of how good I am. Next episode, I get interviewed and I say some funny stuff, so people are happy. Now comes the third episode. They don't air any of my set. And I look at it, and it's just Roseanne getting mad at me. People liked the joke, but it was enough to where it tricked some people to be like, well, I didn't think it was funny. It was crude, you know, but it wasn't a lot of people. But they made it look like I bombed, which didn't happen. So I got a hold of the network, Paige and Wanda, and I was like, of all the things you could have done, you had to make it look like I didn't do well. And it's like, well, this is how we edit it and this and that. You know, I'm like, yeah, I get it. But like, you had to make it look like I didn't do well. And they said, all right. So what they did was they ended up putting my actual set on NBC.com.
Oh.
To Wanda's credit, because she's a comic, so everybody saw what really happened, which made me look good. So the stuff that I was putting out on Twitter and Facebook of like, I wish you actually saw the set. Like, I wouldn't say anything too bad because I didn't want to get in trouble, but that's not what happened. And I said it publicly. That's not what happened. And then they put it out. And a year later, they flew me out to do it again, and it was the day after my son was born. And I felt so stupid about going there because I didn't want to. And my wife was like, you can try. And I flew out, and I was like, I went there, and I just half-assed it, and I kind of walked out, and I was like, can you just cut me from everything? And they go, yeah. I'm like, I don't want to be a part of it, and I'm sorry that I wasted your time. And I just flew back to be with my son because I just didn't want to do it again. There was no heart in it. I had been so broken by that. Sure. Because it was after like 11 years that I really thought that this was going to happen. And the rug was pulled out under me in such a brutal and unnecessary way that it really messed me up for a long time. Now, I didn't know that that was going to happen so many times again because this is show business, but that was like one of my first gut punches. It was very difficult.
I can't imagine, man. All right, so if you can go back in history and meet somebody, Thomas Edison.
Yes.
Not Nikolai Tesla?
No, Edison, because I want to see how many inventions he stole. Because he worked in a patent office and just stole everybody's ideas.
That is somebody I used to admire in history.
Yeah.
And then, oh my gosh, you start reading, and then you keep reading, and you keep like, oh my gosh, this guy was a terrible human being.
Yeah, just a patent clerk who's a scumbag.
He was.
Yeah, and he's like, I invented electricity.
Right. No, you killed an elephant, bro.
Yeah. No, Tesla did, and you were like, no, I did.
I tell you. Okay.
Yeah. That's why I like to meet him, just to be like, so what else did you take?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's a good perspective. I'm just glad that the car is called a Tesla and not an Edison.
Yes.
Your most embarrassing moment, I think we've kind of covered that there.
Yes.
Regrets, probably. We've gone over that ground.
Yep.
Is there anything left on your bucket list in your life that you want to, I mean, you list a 1-hour comedy special, but how can we make this happen?
Well, I just taped it in Dallas. So
what?
I actually having it, we did 2 shows at a theater, sold out downtown, cool. And so now it's in the editing process. So that dream looks like it's going to come true.
Wow. Do you know when that's going to air?
Not sure yet. We're just in the editing phase, but I'm very excited that it's actually wheels in motion.
That is so cool, man.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me know for sure, please. What's currently in your Amazon cart? Anything of note?
Definitely a shirt from the Chive, probably with Bill Murray on it is my guess, or some movie on it, or a band shirt.
Awesome. Okay.
Actually, most band shirts are by a concert, so most likely it's a movie shirt.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And people can catch you on Twitter. It's Landau Dave, Landau.
Yes.
Dave, and or I guess you could just shortcut and just go to davelandau.com, right?
Yes.
Cool. Have we covered? I mean, my goodness, this has been such a epically long conversation. I appreciate your time so much today, Dave. Thank you.
No
so
problem,
much, man. And we covered everything, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very cool. Thanks so much. Catch him on Steven Crowder on The Blaze.
Yes.
Thanks, man. It was awesome sitting down, getting to talk with Dave. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Don't forget, you can catch him on Louder with Crowder. That's Steven Crowder's very popular podcast. If you enjoy meeting people through this podcast, I hope you'll rate and review it. Send your friends and family the link. It's at themikeshow.com. Next week will be our 100th episode. It's going to be a guy who needs no introduction. My boss, Glenn Beck. The 100th episode of At the Mic. I'm looking forward to sharing that conversation with you as we go through his life story with some tales maybe you have not yet heard. And that'll be next week. In the meantime, catch up on any episodes you may have missed. And above all,
Please, go be free. And thank you for listening.
This has been At the Mic with Keith, an independent podcast production. Head to atthemicshow.com for archived episodes, sponsor information, and ways to connect.